Let's see here. Her belly is full of blood. She's got an injury to her liver, her spleen, and her colon, and is still actively bleeding inside.
In December 2020, 2-year-old Fallon Fridley was left with her trusted babysitter, Kirstie Flood. Hours later, Fallon was fighting for her life in the hospital. What seemed like a tragic accident quickly unraveled into a chilling case of lies, abuse, and betrayal. This is Fallon's heartbreaking story. The day everything changed. December 9th, 2020 began like any other day in Sandy Springs, Georgia. For Fallon Fridley's mother, it was another routine morning of leaving her little girl with a trusted babysitter and family friend, Kirstie Flood. Nothing seemed out of place, and there was no reason to believe that this day would be any different from the countless others. Flood welcomed Fallon into her apartment, and Fallon's mother left reassured, believing her daughter was in safe hands. Hours later, that sense of safety would be shattered. By evening, a frantic 911 call was made. Flood reported that Fallon had fallen at the playground, claiming she hit her head on a slide. She said the child seemed off afterward, so she was put to bed. But soon after, Fallon became unresponsive. Flood said she panicked, attempted to revive her by placing her in a cold bath, and even tried CPR before calling emergency responders. Paramedics rushed Fallon to the hospital, but her condition was grave. Despite doctors' best efforts, the toddler's life hung by a thread. By the following day, Fallon's injuries proved fatal, and her family's worst nightmare had become reality. For Fallon's devastated mother, the news was incomprehensible. How could a seemingly harmless fall take away her daughter's life so quickly? What was supposed to be an ordinary day filled with routine turned into the darkest day imaginable. What Fallon's family did not yet know was that the explanation they were given was a lie, and the truth would be far more horrifying. The medical red flags. When Fallon arrived at the hospital, doctors were immediately alarmed. Her injuries were severe, far worse than anything a simple fall from a playground slide could cause. Medical experts noted a fractured skull, deep internal trauma, and extensive bruising across her body. Injuries that were consistent with blunt force abuse, not an accident. Fallon's tiny body told a story of suffering that did not align with the narrative her babysitter provided. Doctors who specialize in pediatric trauma recognize the warning signs. Playground accidents typically result in isolated injuries, such as scrapes, minor bumps, or a single fracture. But Fallon's condition was entirely different. She had bruises on her abdomen, arms, elbows, and legs, as well as internal bleeding. The sheer number and distribution of injuries indicated repeated impact, not a one-time incident. Within hours, medical staff reported their findings to law enforcement, triggering a formal child abuse investigation. For Fallon's grieving family, the initial shock of her death was compounded by suspicion. How could their vibrant little girl, perfectly healthy that morning, end up battered and broken by nightfall? While Flood insisted that Fallon had simply hit her head while playing, doctors knew that story was impossible. This medical evidence was the first major turning point in the investigation. It transformed the case from a supposed tragic accident into a potential homicide. Investigators now realized they weren't dealing with bad luck or carelessness. They were dealing with something deliberate, violent, and deeply disturbing. Lies and shifting stories. As detectives began questioning Kirstie Flood, her story quickly started to unravel. At first, she stuck to her claim that Fallon had fallen at the playground. She insisted the child hit her head on a slide and appeared groggy afterward. But when pressed on details, inconsistencies appeared. Witnesses from the apartment complex reported they hadn't seen Fallon outside that day, contradicting Flood's account of a playground accident. When detectives challenged her, Flood changed her story. She said Fallon seemed sick after the supposed fall, so she gave her a cold bath to shock her awake. Later, she added that she performed CPR before calling 911, suggesting she had done everything she could to save the child. Yet, none of these explanations matched the severity of the injuries. The fractured skull and internal trauma simply could not be explained away by a minor bump on a playground. Investigators noted her nervous behavior, shifting timelines, and repeated contradictions. Each time Flood altered her story, it raised more suspicion. Instead of clarifying what happened, her words created more confusion. It became clear that she was hiding something, and detectives were determined to uncover the truth. For Fallon's devastated family, the realization that the woman they trusted most was lying was almost unbearable. The betrayal cut deep, but the lies only strengthened the resolve of investigators. They knew that to get justice for Fallon, they needed to dig deeper into Flood's personal life and uncover what really happened behind closed doors that tragic day. The chilling internet searches. One of the most damning discoveries in the investigation came from Flood's own phone. Detectives obtained a warrant to search her device, and what they uncovered was chilling. In the days and weeks leading up to Fallon's death, Flood had conducted disturbing internet searches that revealed her dark thoughts and intentions. She had typed questions like, "I hit my child and feel guilty. What does it mean to have sudden urges to beat a child that's not yours? And what type of people enjoy abusing other people's children?" These searches painted a horrifying picture of someone wrestling with violent impulses, but also entertaining them. They weren't random curiosities. They showed a mindset preoccupied with harming children. For investigators, these searches were a breakthrough. They proved that Fallon's death was no accident. The injuries, combined with Flood's shifting stories, were already suspicious. But the internet history showed premeditation and intent. This wasn't just a tragic mistake or a caretaker losing control in a moment of frustration. This was abuse waiting to happen. When prosecutors presented this evidence, it shocked even hardened detectives. The fact that someone entrusted with a child's care was actively researching how and why people abuse children revealed her state of mind leading up to Fallon's murder. It erased any doubt that Fallon's death was anything other than intentional cruelty. For Fallon's grieving family, these revelations were devastating. It wasn't just that their trust was betrayed. It was that their little girl's suffering had been considered, planned, and inflicted by someone they loved. The boyfriend's dark role. As detectives continued their investigation, it became clear that Kirstie Flood was not the only person responsible for Fallon's suffering. Her boyfriend, Jeffrey Meyers, was also implicated. While Flood was the primary caregiver on the day of Fallon's death, evidence revealed Meyers' involvement and complicity in the abuse. His role in the case shocked the community further, showing that this was not an isolated act, but one enabled by a partner who chose silence and cruelty over protection. Prosecutors argued that Meyers was present during the abuse and failed to intervene. Instead of stopping the violence, he became part of the toxic environment that allowed it to escalate. For Fallon's family, this revelation deepened their pain. They had already been betrayed by someone they trusted like family, and now they learned another adult was involved in their daughter's tragic death. The case against Meyers highlighted how abuse can sometimes be perpetuated not only by the direct actions of one individual, but also by the silence or support of others. By failing to protect Fallon and allowing the violence to continue, Meyers shared responsibility in the horrific outcome. His eventual guilty plea confirmed his involvement, leaving no doubt about his role in the tragedy. What should have been a safe space for a child turned into a nightmare because two adults, not one, chose cruelty over compassion. This revelation reinforced the depth of betrayal and highlighted the dangers hidden behind closed doors. Justice in the courtroom. By 2024, after years of grief, investigation, and countless court delays, Fallon's family finally witnessed justice unfold inside a courtroom. What had begun in December 2020 with unimaginable tragedy reached its legal conclusion. The evidence against babysitter Kirstie Flood and her boyfriend Jeffrey Meyers was overwhelming, leaving little room for defense. Investigators had pieced together medical reports, eyewitness contradictions, and chilling digital evidence that painted a horrific picture of deliberate abuse. Faced with this mountain of proof, both defendants chose not to endure the scrutiny of a public trial. Instead, they pleaded guilty, sparing the family months of painful testimony, but ensuring their guilt was forever recorded. Flood admitted to the most serious charges: malice murder, aggravated child cruelty, aggravated sexual battery, and making false statements. Meyers, for his part, pleaded guilty to second-degree murder for enabling the abuse and failing to protect Fallon. Their admissions carried weight not just legally, but emotionally. The courtroom atmosphere was heavy with grief and intensity. Fallon's mother, relatives, and supporters sat quietly, listening as every charge and plea was read aloud. Their heartbreak was visible, but so too was their resolve to see justice done. For them, hearing Flood finally admit her crimes was both devastating and strangely relieving. It confirmed the betrayal they had long suspected, yet it also provided the first real step toward closure after years of unanswered questions. Prosecutors did not hold back in recounting the details of Fallon's final hours. They described her injuries, the lies Flood told, and the disturbing internet searches that revealed her mindset. The judge acknowledged the unimaginable suffering the family endured, calling Fallon's death an unspeakable tragedy that had left scars on the entire community. While the guilty pleas avoided a drawn-out trial, the emotional burden remained. Fallon's family left the courthouse with justice served, but also with the heavy knowledge that nothing could restore the laughter, milestones, and future stolen from their little girl. For the broader community, the outcome served as both justice and warning. It reminded parents everywhere of the fragility of trust and the devastating consequences of misplaced faith. Fallon's name became more than a headline. It became a symbol of innocence lost, resilience in the face of tragedy, and the enduring fight for justice. The sentencing marked the final chapter of a long and painful journey that began the day Fallon Fridley's life was cut short. After years of investigation, court hearings, and unbearable grief for her family, justice was finally handed down. For Kirstie Flood, the punishment was as severe as the crime itself: life in prison without the possibility of parole. This ensured that she would never again experience freedom, never again walk outside as a free woman. The court recognized that her actions, deliberate, cruel, and heartless, had not only destroyed the life of an innocent child, but also shattered the trust of a family who had once loved her. The judge made it clear that the gravity of her crimes demanded the harshest possible outcome. Alongside her, Jeffrey Meyers, Flood's boyfriend, also faced consequences. Though his role was less direct, his complicity could not be ignored. For enabling the abuse and failing to protect Fallon, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison. This punishment served as a reflection of his responsibility in the chain of events that led to the toddler's tragic death. For Fallon's grieving family, these sentences brought a measure of justice, but no true comfort. No prison term, no guilty plea, and no courtroom declaration could erase the emptiness left behind. They would never again hear her laughter echo through their home, never see her grow into the bright young woman she might have become, and never celebrate the milestones she was meant to achieve. What they did gain, however, was the knowledge that the individuals responsible for Fallon's suffering would face real consequences. The community of Sandy Springs mourned alongside them. Vigils were held, flowers were placed, and Fallon's name was carried across news headlines as a reminder of how easily trust can be betrayed. Parents everywhere were forced to confront uncomfortable questions about who they entrust with their children, realizing that even those closest to us can hide darkness. Fallon's short life left an impact far greater than her years. Her story stands as a symbol of innocence stolen, a painful lesson in betrayal, and an urgent call to protect the most vulnerable members of our society. Though justice was delivered in the courtroom, Fallon's memory continues to live on, inspiring awareness, vigilance, and a promise that her suffering will never be forgotten. Fallon's story is a heartbreaking reminder of how trust can be shattered in the most devastating way. Justice was served, but nothing can replace her loss. By sharing her story, we honor her memory. Please like, share, and subscribe to help spread awareness and protect other innocent children.